Welcome back to the Real Bio Protocol. Creatine is a lie, not the molecule itself. That's real. That's been proven 1,000 times over. No, the lie is what they told you about it. For 30 years, researchers have been publishing findings about creatine that would fundamentally change how you think about this white powder sitting in your cabinet right now. And the fitness industry? They buried it. They took the most studied supplement in human history, over 700 peer-reviewed studies, and they cherry-picked the boring stuff. The stuff that sells tubs. The stuff that keeps you coming back to buy the same 5 grams a day without ever asking the question that matters. What is creatine actually doing inside your body? Because here's what nobody mentions. Creatine doesn't just make your muscles bigger. It doesn't just help you push out one more representative. 3 separate lines of research, published in journals you've never heard of, conducted by scientists with no sponsorship deals, found something that should have changed everything. Creatine affects your brain more powerfully than your biceps. Creatine's so-called side effects might actually be signals that you're taking it wrong. And the long-term implications of creatine use? They knew about this in 2007 and nobody said a word. By the end of this video, you're going to understand creatine better than 99% of personal trainers, better than the guy at the supplement store who swears by it, and better than the influencers who've been pushing the same recycled talking points since 2012. This is the truth about creatine that nobody mentions. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Let's begin with what they taught you. What the mainstream fitness industry decided you were allowed to know. Open any fitness magazine from the last 3 decades. Watch any supplement review on YouTube. Ask any gym bro what creatine does. You'll get the same answer, almost word for word, like they're all reading from the same script. Creatine helps you build muscle. It increases your strength. It pulls water into your cells. Take 5 grams a day. Don't overthink it. That's the creatine catechism, the approved message. And look, it's not wrong exactly. Creatine monohydrate does increase phosphocreatine stores in your muscle tissue. It does allow you to regenerate ATP faster during high-intensity exercise. It does support strength gains when combined with resistance training. But here's where the mainstream narrative falls apart. They made creatine about muscles. They reduced one of the most fascinating molecules in human biochemistry to a simple equation: creatine equals bigger arms. And in doing so, they ignored 3 decades of research that reveals creatine is doing something far more profound. The fitness industry has financial incentives to keep creatine simple. Simple sells. Take this powder, get jacked. That's a marketing message that moves product. But take this powder and fundamentally alter your cellular energy systems in ways that affect cognition, neuroprotection, mood regulation, and long-term metabolic health. That's harder to fit on a label. So they didn't bother. They also spread fear about creatine. You've heard the warnings. Creatine damages your kidneys. Creatine causes hair loss. Creatine dehydrates you. Creatine gives you cramps. For years, these supposed side effects were repeated so often they became accepted truth. And the research? The actual peer-reviewed studies that examined these claims? They told a completely different story. A 2003 study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition followed athletes taking creatine for 21 months straight. Kidney function? Completely normal. A meta-analysis in 2017 examined over 500 participants across multiple trials. Hair loss connection? No statistically significant evidence. The dehydration myth? Actually reversed by the data. Creatine increases total body water, potentially improving hydration status. But you never heard about these studies. Because fear sells almost as well as simplicity. The fitness industry created a version of creatine that was profitable, not accurate. And the real science, the stuff that would actually help you understand what you're putting in your body, got left on the cutting room floor. Until now. Here's where it gets interesting. Here's where 30 years of buried research finally sees the light. Let's start with your brain. In 2018, researchers at the University of Sydney published a study that should have made headlines everywhere. They gave creatine supplements to vegetarians and vegans, people with naturally lower creatine levels due to their diet, and then tested their cognitive function. The results were staggering. Working memory improved, processing speed increased, mental fatigue resistance went up dramatically. These weren't athletes doing bicep curls. These were people sitting in a lab doing cognitive tests. And creatine, the same powder you thought was just for muscle, made them smarter. But that was just the beginning. A 2007 study published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society found that creatine supplementation improved brain performance under conditions of sleep deprivation and oxygen stress. Read that again. When your brain is struggling, creatine acts like a rescue squad for your neurons. Why? Because your brain is one of the most energy-demanding organs in your body. It represents about 2% of your body weight but consumes roughly 20% of your daily energy. And how does it get that energy? Through ATP, the exact same energy currency that creatine helps regenerate. Your brain has creatine kinase enzymes. Your brain stores phosphocreatine. Your brain runs on the same system that powers your muscle contractions. And for 30 years, the fitness industry told you creatine was about getting swole. Here's what they knew and didn't tell you. Research from 2010 identified creatine as a potential neuroprotective agent. Studies showed it could protect brain cells from toxicity. Investigations began into creatine's role in neurodegenerative conditions. Scientists were looking at creatine not as a gym supplement, but as a legitimate neurological intervention. And the mainstream fitness narrative? Still stuck on, take 5 grams for gains. The second hidden truth involves what we call non-responders. You might have heard that some people don't respond to creatine. They take it and nothing happens. The industry brushes these people off. Bad genetics, they say. Just doesn't work for everyone. But the research tells a different story. Studies have shown that non-responders typically have higher baseline levels of intramuscular creatine before supplementation. Their muscles are already saturated. It's not that creatine doesn't work for them. It's that their bodies are already optimized. And here's the kicker. These non-responders often eat more red meat and fish, which are natural dietary sources of creatine. Meanwhile, the people who respond best to supplementation, those with lower baseline levels, vegetarians, vegans, people who don't eat much meat. Nobody talks about this because it complicates the simple message. It suggests that creatine supplementation might be more important for some people than others. That it's not one size fits all. That you might actually need to think about whether and how you take it. And thinking doesn't sell supplements. Now let's get into the machinery. Let's understand what's actually happening at the cellular level when creatine enters your system. When you consume creatine, whether through food or supplements, it enters your bloodstream and gets distributed throughout your body. But here's what most people don't understand. Creatine doesn't go everywhere equally. Different tissues have different uptake capacities. Skeletal muscle takes the lion's share. About 95% of your body's creatine is stored in muscle tissue. But that remaining 5%? It's distributed to your brain, your heart, your kidneys, and other tissues that have high energy demands. Each tissue has creatine transporters, specialized proteins that actively pull creatine from your blood into cells. And these transporters can become saturated. This is why loading protocols exist. This is why timing might matter more than you've been told. Once inside your cells, creatine gets phosphorylated by an enzyme called creatine kinase. It becomes phosphocreatine, and this is where the magic happens. Phosphocreatine is your cellular battery backup. When you need energy fast, when you're sprinting, lifting heavy, or your brain is doing complex calculations, your cells can't wait for the full mitochondrial energy production cycle. That takes too long. Instead, phosphocreatine instantly donates its phosphate group to ADP, regenerating ATP in a fraction of a second. This is called the phosphocreatine shuttle. And it's not just about power output. Recent research has revealed that this shuttle also plays a role in cellular signaling. Creatine kinase enzymes are positioned at specific locations in your cells, near the mitochondria, near the cellular membrane, near sites of high energy demand. They don't just regenerate ATP randomly. They regenerate it where it's needed when it's needed. This spatial and temporal regulation of energy availability affects everything from muscle contraction to neurotransmitter release to ion channel function. Creatine isn't just fuel, it's a cellular logistics system. And here's where long-term use becomes fascinating. Studies have shown that chronic creatine supplementation can actually increase the expression of creatine transporters and creatine kinase enzymes. Your body adapts. It builds more infrastructure to handle the increased creatine availability. This suggests that long-term creatine use isn't just about maintaining saturation. It might actually enhance your body's ability to utilize creatine over time. The fitness industry talks about cycling off creatine, taking breaks to reset sensitivity. But the research suggests the opposite might be true. Your cells don't develop tolerance to creatine. They develop capacity for it. But here's what nobody mentions about the long term. We don't fully understand all the implications. The research is encouraging, but gaps exist. And those gaps should make you thoughtful, not fearful. Now, what do you actually do with this information? First, reconsider why you're taking creatine. If you've been thinking of it purely as a muscle-building supplement, you've been leaving benefits on the table. Consider the cognitive advantages. Consider the neuroprotective potential. This isn't just about your physique. It's about your brain, your energy, your resilience. Second, assess your baseline. Do you eat a lot of red meat? A lot of fish? You might already have relatively high creatine levels. You might be a non-responder. Not because creatine doesn't work, but because you don't need as much supplementation.